of my other videos by now, you may know that I quite like reading books. And I talk quite a lot about the books that I read, especially the ones that I like and the ones I want to recommend. But today I'm going to be talking about a book that I really didn't like. Now this is the first audiobook that I've ever listened to, and I'll be honest, I started to get quite bored towards the end. I may have skipped through a few bits of a few of the later chapters because it was just that bad. I heard great things about this book. In loads of magazines, I heard about how it was really funny, it was empowering to women, it was like so real and honest. I heard really, really good things, so I was excited to read it. And this book is The Girl with the Low Back Tattoo by Amy Schumer. You might have heard a lot about her recently because of the whole controversy with the Netflix special and the alt-right trolls and all that kind of thing. She did have a lot of bad press, but I started listening to this book way back in December last year, and I figured, you know, she's a comedian, the best way to experience a book by her is probably to listen to it. So I gave it a go, and then I got kind of bored and dropped off, and I suddenly thought, you know what, her Netflix special wasn't so good, but I don't really know anything else about her. Other than that, I'd never seen any of her stand-up, none of her TV shows, anything like that. All I'd had was this experience with the first part of her book, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go back, listen to it again. So that's what I did, and I've just finished it, literally like 20 minutes ago, and I'm really not impressed. The weird thing is that for a comedian, her narration is so dull and boring. Like, it sounds like she doesn't want to be there, it sounds like she doesn't want to be reading her own book, it sounds like she's bored by her own book. And that's not something you want to listen to. Most of the time it was really monotonous and really boring, and I just didn't enjoy listening to be honest. One of the things you should know about me before I kind of get into any detail with this, because this might be quite a long rant, but one of the things you should know about me is that I get very emotional with things like books and TV and films, even music. Like, it properly affects me. I cry at anything, I laugh at anything, I get so invested with the characters. But with this, I barely even let out a giggle. Like, it was just like, The first point she lost me at was pretty early on when she started talking about how she shoplifted a lot when she was younger and she'd just like steal things for fun that she didn't need to. She'd like do it with her friends. And it just sounded a bit like she was kind of like bragging, and it was just really awful, to be honest. As someone who's worked in retail, that sort of thing really makes me angry and it really disgusts me. And she didn't even make it out to be that much of like a kind of cautionary tale for kids, as a like, oh look, this was awful and it ruined my life, or this was awful and it got other people in trouble, or this is awful and these were the terrible consequences. She was kind of like making light of it and, like I say, almost like bragging about all this stuff she shoplifted. And I just was not impressed by it, and that really put me off very early on in the book. A lot of people have praised her for being like really honest and open with the book, and she keeps saying herself, she's like, oh, I'm like deeply honest and stuff like that. She goes on and on about how she's honest and real throughout this book. And I mean, being honest is one thing. In Furiously Happy, Jenny Lawson was honest with her writing. In a lot of memoirs, people do get honest and they talk about things that are difficult, but there's being honest and then there's just too much information. There's being cringy and disgusting and gross. And a lot of the stuff she said was just stuff that I didn't want to hear. Simple as that. One of the big things that really annoyed me that I only started picking up on in the later half of the book was that a lot of the things she used in her Netflix special were taken straight from the book. So this book I think came out in like 2016 or maybe 2015 or something like that, but it was like way before the leather special was, I think, produced or released or anything like that. And literally there are like word for word jokes taken out of the book and put in that special, and to me that is just incredibly lazy. And the thing is, they're not even good jokes. They're jokes that in the book were just like, no, stop. And on stage people were like, no, stop. Like, if you have seen the special or you have read the book, I'm just gonna say to you, barnyard animal. She uses that bit in both. No. If you haven't seen them, don't go watch or listen. Just don't. It's disgusting and you don't want to hear that. And the fact that she thought it was one of her better jokes that she had to include in both these things is just shocking to me. And it really says a lot about her kind of taste level, I think. Another thing she talks about a lot, that she talks about in both the in her leather special and the book, is this whole idea of getting like blackout drunk. And again, she tells the exact same story in regards to that, and it's not a pleasant one, it's not a funny one, and it's not something that anyone should want to hear, or that anyone probably does want to hear. It's not something I wanted to hear. Another thing that seriously annoyed me throughout the book was just her pessimism in general. She was so like down on everything, and it just kind of like got a bit much towards the end. It was just like, you don't want to hear that. Like, if someone's had crappy stuff happen to them, that's fair enough, as long as like you can kind of see how they've like grown and learnt from it. But she just like has this downer on everything the whole time, and I really hate that. But at the same time, she's also really full of herself, so it's like a really weird contradiction. So it's like one minute she'll be like, oh yeah, because I'm like really fat and I'm drunk and I hold these flaws and I do this and I do this and I do this, and then the next minute she'll be like, but I'm amazing and I've done this and I've done this and I've done this, and like I'm totally better than this person because of this, and I'm great because of this and this. And it's just so annoying, and it just feels like really false, and it feels like every bad thing she says, like if she says, oh, so like I'm a size 10, which I think is like a 14 or something here in England, she's like, oh yeah, I'm a size 10 and blah blah blah, and it's awful and this, and no one likes me because of it, and meh. But it feels like she's just saying that so she can get the response of, oh no, sweetie, you're not fat, no, you look amazing, don't worry. And if you don't say that to her, if you say, yeah, you know what, Amy, you are a little bit overweight, you're right, she'd probably turn around and have a fit at you for body shaming. Another thing I dislike is just her whole approach to kind of like body image of women in general. She tries to make out throughout it that she's all like body positive and stuff, and yet she goes on this big rant about shaming women who actually enjoy exercise and who like to look after their bodies. She talks about skinny girls and she calls them fembots and says they have young boy bodies. She makes fun of people for wanting to look like a Victoria's Secret model, and it's like she mocks people if you can see your ribs, and she goes on and on about how real women have cellulite. I'm like, I don't. Does that not make me a woman? It's just a little bit insulting to everyone who isn't her size, to be honest. And it's not just women she's kind of offensive to like that, or should I say it's not just skinny women she's offensive about, it's men as well. I honestly don't think she has any respect for men. Like, the way she talks about them, the way she talks about how she's treated them, she's very like stereotypical, she's very kind of like mocking of men, and it all just comes across as like really immature. It all sounds like a 16-year-old girl would talk, and it really annoys me. Like, and it's not even just that she completely objectifies them, but it's just this kind of like lack of understanding, and even just a lack of a basic understanding that, you know, men have feelings too, and men have a personality, and men have reasons behind their actions. And when you do notice that, you shouldn't mock them for it, because, you know, they're people, and that's what people do. And she just doesn't seem to get that. I mean, at one point she compares living with a boyfriend to having cockroaches in your apartment. And it's like, I know it's meant to be a joke, but it's just, like, it's a poor joke, it's not funny, and it's not even that it's just like an offensive joke, because some of the best comedy is offensive, because it's that kind of like, you know, slightly on edge stuff that can be really funny sometimes, and that's kind of where humour can come from. But the thing is that I just think she really does feel this way, and she really does like lack any respect for most men, and that's a little bit scary in a way. Plus the way she talks, she's the kind of woman who gives like women a crazy reputation. Like, to quote her, I've lived with 4 boyfriends in my life and I've tricked each one of them into it. Another time, I ended up moving to trap him into dating me. Is this kind of talk that makes men think, oh, women are crazy, and gives just women in general a bad reputation. Again, she's like completely dehumanizing these guys and feeling she has to like trick them or trap them into being with her. And it's all a bit bizarre to me. Like, she's not relatable, it's not funny, and it just comes across as a little bit scary, to be honest. Like, throughout this book, she's just the last kind of person I would ever want to meet or be friends with. She sounds awful, and that's not an endearing quality in any kind of narrator, never mind a real person in a memoir. You know what I mean? She's a bad friend, she was an awful teenager, she misbehaved like crazy and clearly never learnt anything from it. And she's horrible to men, she's horrible to women, she's horrible to the public, and then she comes across trying to be all preachy and teach people about like gun control and body positivity and like empowering women, and it just like, it all kind of clashes and doesn't work and just comes across as her being a bit stuck up and preachy, and I don't enjoy it at all. And the thing is, like, there are some bits of the book where she gets really serious and she talks about some really serious and sad things. She talks about an abusive relationship. She talks about her dad being ill. She talks about family problems when she was growing up, with her mum having an affair with her best friend's dad, and all this crazy stuff. And stuff like that should be like these really big emotional moments. But it's like, when you read a fiction book and you don't really have that bond with a character, you don't have any sympathy for them, you don't really like them. When something bad happens to them, you don't really care. And it's just like that in this case. But you feel bad for not caring because she's actually a real person and these things have happened to her, and you should feel bad. But just because she's so unlikable throughout the rest of the book, you don't care that much. And then you feel bad, and then you feel bad for her, and then you kind of feel like, oh, well, should I feel bad because I don't like her? And it's just this horrible, big, never-ending cycle of hate and dislike and misery, and that's all you get out of the book. One of the main bits that really, really annoyed me is when she's talking about an article she was asked to write for, I think it was Men's Health magazine. And basically they came to her and they said, hey, Amy, you're a comedian, will you write us a humorous article about this topic? And she was like, yeah, sure, here's the article. There you go. And then they send her back some like questions, fact checking, blah blah blah, they send her over the proofs, and she's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why isn't my photo in there? Why have you used this model? And again, she gets really offensive about thin models and blah blah blah. And she has this really like horrible, weird, sarcastic confrontation with the editor of the magazine, and he's clearly mocking her throughout it. She's trying to mock him back, but it all just comes across as really cringy and faily. And the thing is, he makes an amazing point. He's like, we asked you to write an article. We've had this person, this person, this person write articles for us, who happen to be famous people or whatever, and we haven't featured their photos because it doesn't fit with the magazine. Like, that's not what they do. They say, if we asked someone to write an article on finance, we'd show a picture of a pile of money. We wouldn't show a full page spread, like, picture of the author, whoever it was. It's like, just because you're a woman doesn't mean you should be in the magazine. And she just got really, like, stressy about it, and I think he made an amazing point. Because the article wasn't a feature on Amy Schumer. The article was a feature on whatever by Amy Schumer. And I think the editor was like completely in the right, and he handled it very well. And she just like tried to like shoot him down and be all like bitchy about it. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong. Everything you're saying is wrong. Like, you're not going to convince me otherwise. And I think just in that chapter in general, she just came across really, really badly, really petty, and pretty mean, to be honest. I'm going to try and like wrap this up a bit now, because I'm kind of going on a lot, I'm ranting a lot, I realise that. But overall, I think she just comes across as a bit of a spoilt kid, and she talks about how she's worked hard for everything, blah blah blah, and she's finally where she wants to be, and she's working on all the kinds of projects that she's ever wanted to do, and yet she still complains about it. And she just goes on and on about why it's awful and why it's terrible and how she doesn't want to do this, she doesn't want to do this, she doesn't want to do this. And it all just gets a bit tiring. And again, it comes back to this big cycle of misery where no one gets any enjoyment out of reading the book, and it's all just a little bit tiresome. It is just a difficult book to read or listen to or anything like that. It wasn't enjoyable. I tried to get through to the end simply so I could kind of make a review of it for you guys, and just to say that I'd finished it, to be honest. But even then, I did skip a few bits in the audiobook, and I was listening to it on like double speed after a while anyway, for like the last sort of 6 chapters, I think, because it just got too much for me and I couldn't deal with it. The fact that she literally took jokes from her book and put them in her special, and they kind of failed both times, says a lot to me. I don't find her funny, I don't find her likeable. After reading this, I don't have a whole lot of respect for her, to be honest, because I don't think she respects herself, and I don't think she respects other people either. I wouldn't recommend this book. I wouldn't recommend watching the Leather special on Netflix. I'll admit, I've not seen any of her other stuff. I've not seen her Inside Amy Schumer program, I've not seen any of her other stand-up except from like a couple of sort of like 2-minute clips here and there. And I've not seen any of her films either. I've not heard good things about them, but I've not seen them, so I can't comment on those. All I can say is, if you're thinking about reading this book, don't bother. Like, there's so many better books out there, like so many. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not alt-right, I'm not a troll, I'm not on Reddit. Yeah, I genuinely didn't like the book, I'm not just saying this to annoy you. Just thought I should make that clear. Sorry this was a bit of a long rant, but if you got this far, thank you so much for watching. If you like this and you want me to make more crazy ranting videos about books or TV or anything else, please give this video a thumbs up because I would really appreciate it. But for now, thank you so much for watching and for getting through this, and I'll see you all again soon.